Wonderful. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third and last webinar in our capacity building series entitled Making the Most from Professional Development. We are so pleased that you can join us here today. I'm Dr. Natalie Natal, one of 3 regional coordinators serving the Los Angeles and Orange County region. And I will turn it over to my partner, Libby, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Libby Lee Curiel, and I am partners with Natalie in this work. And I am so pleased to introduce some of our panelists today, and that is Jean Costello, professor of English, but also Guided Pathways Work Group for co-chair and professional learning coordinator at Fullerton College, as well as Dr. Miguel Powers, who also co-chairs a Guided Pathways Work Group and is co-coordinator of Mindful Growth Initiative. You might have seen him running some events at some of your colleges or maybe with 3CSN, and who is also an English professor. We also have
with us here today Dr. Kelly Falcone, who is the professor of kinesiology and health, as well as the professional development coordinator at Palomar College. So welcome, and a special thanks in advance to our panelists for the great information I know you will bestow upon us today. So why are we doing this? As you know, we have gone through so many changes this year as a result of our pandemic. And with that in mind, we know that some colleges have been struggling to maintain momentum on guided pathways, while other colleges have been able to continue this work with minimal disruption. And to that end, we developed our capacity building series. We started out this series with discussing ways to build momentum in times of change. And in our second webinar, we focused on how to strengthen facilitation and collaboration. So today, in the last installment of our capacity building series, we want to address, while you are working to fully maximize your GP efforts, how you can make the most of your professional development and ensure alignment with your guided pathways work. As such, we are featuring 2 colleges from the Southern California area that have been doing great work with professional development, which has been helpful in centering the work of guided pathways.
And before we get to them, we're going to just start with some tips and strategies. So in order to sort of set the tone, I want to start off with some key PD principles, and these might resonate with you. And they come from research. And so we have some of the sources there below, but when we post this to the VRC, we'll include full references for you as well. So some of those things are to start right. So we all know that having a really effective moderator is important. So once you've identified what your outcomes are, you're going to want to have somebody that's really effective to help moderate these PD opportunities. And those PD opportunities should help to ensure, you want to be able to ensure diversity, both in the curriculum that you're using, but also with the participants, making sure that you have folks from different stakeholder groups on campus, as well as being able to foster community through these opportunities. And one way to be able to make sure that you've got these pieces together is to really help develop the capacity of middle leaders on your campus, people who may be on campus for years to come. And the RP group has an opportunity to help develop those skills with their Leading from the Middle Academy. If you are aware of that, or if you're not, it's great to check there. As a resource, we actually have a link that we can put in the chat in a few minutes to share that with you. And the other thing is, you want to make sure that these opportunities connect to values and beliefs. So we're going to do much more better. We're going to be much more successful in our PD opportunities if we have autonomous motivation rather than external control, motivation from external control. And so that kind of motivation is the best predictor for PD engagement and subsequent implementation. And we're better together. So research shows that the most effective PD is continued, right? And it's ongoing. And one of the ways to do that is through communities of practice or professional learning communities. And how you can foster these online, there's lots of different resources available. One of the organizations that's helping to support and foster this kind of online communication and collaboration is 3CSN. So on the right hand side, you'll see that's actually a live link we'll put on the VRC to their wayfinding online PD series that they've been doing, a lot of it geared towards guided pathways work as well. And you want to measure what's important. So sometimes after attending a PD, you'll see a sort of like a satisfaction survey, but are we also measuring sort of our implementation and impact? And so how we measure PD matters, and that's something to think about. The next thing for you to think through here is to try to find connections between the professional development work that you're doing as well as the guided pathways. So we have some questions for consideration in these different areas. One is in terms of cross-representation, where does PD and guided pathways align on campus, right? And then how are the goals for those different entities? If they are different, how do those align? And in terms of implementation, there's some questions that you can ask yourselves, how are we making space for institutional talent to be able to present and be a part of presenting professional developments? What are mechanisms we can use to incentivize? How are we leveraging the different opportunities externally that are being offered? And how are we communicating both those internal and external opportunities? And then finally, in terms of evaluation and improvement, some really great questions for you to think about here. How is PD built into the continuous improvement process at the college? And how are we referencing or linking professional development and guided pathways through our SOAA for planning?
So a lot of PD efforts fail because of the lack of proper evaluation that is tied to outcomes. So trainings are offered, people attend, and then what happens after that? Did we learn anything? Did any behaviors change? And especially now with many of our colleges tightening their budgets, we need to be more intentional about our PD efforts to ensure that it is fulfilling the return on expectations and investment. One of the best ways we can evaluate training is through the Kirkpatrick, model of evaluation. Is probably one of the best known models for evaluating the effectiveness of training and intervention programs. It has 4 levels, in which you can see in the diagram, that range from reaction, learning, behavior, and results. However, most training evaluation efforts do not go beyond the base level 1 of reaction. So to examine this model in greater detail, we want to first look at this model much like in the same way we do with guided pathways. You want to design your PD with the end in mind. Start at level 4 to identify the results you want to achieve, then work backwards to level 3 to think about what participants need to do on the job to achieve those results, and so on. Level 4 asks us to look at what metrics do we want to measure? How often do you want to measure? This was also mentioned, coincidentally enough, in a recent article in Education This Week that discussed why a lot of anti-bias trainings do not work. And we know that this has been a training that has been, kind of coming up a little bit more frequently nowadays. So, and they mentioned that unless you tie the training program to explicit outcomes, such as diverse recruitment or retention efforts, it probably won't go anywhere. With level 3, you want to evaluate the critical behaviors that you need to see from participants and looking at the degree to which participants change their behavior after the training. For example, a critical behavior from a training could be that faculty should be actively participating in professional learning communities, and to encourage participation, possibly offering flex credit through your learning management system. And then level 2 addresses whether the participants acquired the intended knowledge, skills, or attitudes as a result of the training. And to illustrate, if you're looking at a procedural knowledge, the training can evaluate during and after the training if faculty were, for example, able to develop a sample lesson plan or a syllabus that is infused with an equity lens. And finally, at level 1, reaction, this evaluates whether the participants reacted favorably to the training. This is typically done using surveys, which a lot of us know, after the training, or observing engagement during and after the training. So in summary, this is a very simplified and very quick explanation of the Kirkpatrick model. I know I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at you about this evaluation method in the last 2 minutes. And if you're anything like me, it takes a while to process. So if you would like to understand more about this model, we have links for you to read about it further, or you can reach out to me to discuss. And I also want you to know that this is not the only model available out there, but it certainly gives you an example of how to really be intentional on how to get the most out of your professional development efforts. So now I would like to turn it over to Libby to commence with our panel discussion so we can hear from our colleagues in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie, for that great information. We're so lucky to have you and your experience in professional development in this area. We have our questions now for our colleges. And the first question goes to both colleges, and either one of you can jump in to answer this first. But the question is, what have been the most significant professional development opportunities that you think have furthered the integration and implementation of Guided Pathways efforts on your campus?
Do you care which one of us goes
Go
first?
for it, Kelly.
So first, I just want to thank you both so much for inviting me to come today. And I'm really inspired by this whole series that you have been presenting. So that's great PD opportunity. And it was an opportunity for me to really think through these questions and think back to what Palomar has done, because I think we get so busy that I, thought we haven't done a lot, and then went back and went, nope, we've actually done a lot. But we really focused when we first kicked off Guided Pathways, we focused on the why, because there was so much pushback of this is another initiative. So we were really like, why are we even doing this? And brought in some pretty effective speakers to just talk about, what is this? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? We brought Maria Hessen from ASU to be able to share with us how ASU connected to Maricopa community colleges. So those types of speakers at the beginning was really, really important for shifting the culture to actually want to believe that Guided Pathways is important. And then in terms of moving towards the how and starting to implement, I would say the two most valuable professional development activities we did that I'm sure you all have done as well is just doing the card sorting workshop on creating our meta majors. So just having our employees look at all the degrees we offered, as well as creating our program maps. It was like a deep self-reflection activity of what we are actually offering to our students and on our campus. And I'd say those were probably kind of our two probably most impactful trainings that we've offered.
So I'll follow up with what Kelly's talking about. So there are kind of two key mechanisms that we've been using. So I want to sort of think about it talk about it a little bit more from the strategic point of view, because we've done very similar things to what Kelly's talking about. And I'm going to talk about how we've leveraged Flex Day. And then Miguel's going to talk about how we've leveraged a symposia, Guided Pathways symposia that we have every semester to do similar kind of work to what Kelly's talking about. So what we did for Fall Flex Day is a similar approach to try to get at the why, right? So our program, and we were trying to think about how do we get to faculty where they're required to be? And we have a mandatory Flex Day before each semester begins, the Thursday before the semester begins. So that was a way to have every instructor in the room to be hearing about this. And we had a keynote presentation that involved three components. We had first our institutional researcher and our faculty co-chair for Pathways talk about the data for our college, completion data. Then we had a student panel of students, a diverse group of students who talked about how they stumbled on their journey and how things were not very clear to them as they were trying to move forward towards their goals. And then we had a keynote speaker. We had Dr. Cynthia Olivo from PCC talk about sort of the equity imperative of the Pathways Initiative and their experience at PCC. And then on that day, we had breakout sessions that were devoted to high impact practices, program mapping, the onboarding process. And those sessions were led by our work group co-chairs to guide faculty through kind of learning that we wanted them to do to help them kind of buy into this. And Miguel, why don't you explain how our symposia tend to work?
Well, thank you for having us, and it's great to be part of a program that supports learning across disciplines and across campuses, so thank you. So we were fortunate enough to get the support from our institution to do symposia. So every semester we were able to invite everyone from campus. We have managers, we have faculty, we have staff, and I'm very excited we were able to support students, and we were able to, with the support from our president and the President's Council, pay the students to attend. So we had upwards of over 50 students in every event. To support the students, we actually did a training to give them a pre-day of training to prepare them so they'd be ready to participate in an informed way. But we were able to do usually some kind of keynote, but more importantly, we did breakout sessions that were really getting to those later stages, were actually the earlier stages in the Kirkpatrick model, where they were very much about how we start changing the behaviors and processes right on campus. So for example, we did a session to sort of show the challenges of onboarding. And we had the group try and sort out, like, well, here are all the pieces. Do you even know what order? We used a card model for that. But then we had people go station to station and experience 3 or 4 different steps and took the feedback from over 100 participants. And the exciting thing was it started changing the website that next week. People who were in the room while the others were trying to navigate their web page realized problems. And then the student services team was able to have their leadership team started making very immediate, impactful changes. And so we're continuing that work. But the exciting part of having people in the room together in diverse groups with different members of each constituency going through the process really illuminated the challenges and also empowered the students to be the voice of expertise because they're the ones who most recently did it. So it was really a great opportunity. I appreciate the support of our institution and Jean's leadership in helping us build a community of learning where we're focused on that kind of practical approach.
Wow, thank you so much for adding that. That's really, really great information. And so I would love to find out from you, and maybe I'll start with Jean and this question. What are some of the resources, internal or external resources that you are utilizing for professional development?
Well, we have, and this is something that's increased over time, we have a pretty robust professional learning budget. So we have $125,000 that we, in like the last few years, got actually added to our general fund. So it's a line item in the general fund budget. So it's now stays steady. It didn't used to stay steady. It used to fluctuate. Plus, we typically have about $50,000 of equity funding for various projects. And then our Pathways initiative budget our Pathways steering committee has been very intentional and thoughtful about seeing the importance of equity-minded professional learning to support the Pathways initiative. So those 3 budgets have really come together. And I mean, one of the things I noticed on your slide is the importance of leveraging local expertise. So we try to do that as much as possible and really kind of amplify and elevate the voices of the folks in our own campus community as much as possible in these sessions, and really kind of just bring people from outside when we think that's kind of needed as that, profit from another land kind of approach, but as much as possible, we really try to leverage our local heroes.
Awesome. I love that you're using your as you say, the local heroes, because those are the experts that are on the ground, right? So that's really wonderful. Kelly, what would you like to add?
We utilize our local heroes predominantly as well. I'm a little jealous that you have a line item for over $100,000 for PD.
Yeah.
I'm like, I advocated for one, got it last year, and then I'm sure everyone heard about Palomar's fiscal problems with FICMAT, and that line item immediately got taken back. So I'm back to essentially a 0 budget. But I have so many colleagues on our campus. Our PD program is predominantly our own heroes, which I love that term, thank you, our own subject matter experts, and those who are really inspiring and engaged in the work, who lead a ton of workshops. So one example of a program that we launched last year was our math department working along with other disciplines across the campus. And we launched a program called Math Across the Curriculum Holistically, so MATCH. And that was trying to infuse math processes and skills within psychology and health and biology and all these other disciplines. So that was a program that was started by our math faculty that we launched at our plenary, our one required flex day of the year as well. So I definitely rely on our own expertise. We have a group of faculty who lead an active learning leaders conference every year. So I facilitate that. So that has been really great for our active learning and experiential learning training. And that's open to everyone across the system. So hopefully you've heard about that. That's been about 7 years in the running. And otherwise, just in terms of internal, external resources, as the PD coordinator, I really try to stay abreast of all of the training that's being offered across the system, which can be really challenging. There's so many different excellent trainings. I noted you noted the 3 CSN wayfinding series, the @ONE courses, Career Ladders Project, ACCJC even has some great training. So trying
Center
to
for Urban Education and the Cora program with Frank Harris III and J. Luke Wood. I mean, all of that.
So many. One of the hardest parts is trying to figure out of all of these, how do I share them and promote them without overwhelming people? And we use the Vision Resource Center. We call it our 3PD portal, and I use that a lot to share out different events that are occurring in webinars and really trying to continue learning throughout the year. We have we have 2 days in the fall, 1 day in the spring that are our plenary days. But beyond that, we offer about 100 to 150 workshops a semester. So we really try to have that professional learning, something that is continual and throughout the entire year.
Dang, that's a lot.
That actually leads us.
Lots of heroes.
Yeah, exactly. That leads us to our next question, which is actually, what are some of the ways that you might have utilized the Vision Resource Center or other external tools or communities to advance your guided pathways professional development goals? And so I know, Kelly, you are talk about local heroes. I feel like any VRC question, I feel like you're right there to answer. And I know that you've done an incredible job of using the VRC. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit more to that.
Sure. So we started using the Vision Resource Center before it was the Vision Resource Center in fall 2017. And the whole reason that we had chosen Cornerstone, which is the software program that it's built on, is because we were trying to transition our PD program from a faculty specific program to an all college program. So I would say one of the biggest changes with utilizing that system was finally having a system where all of our employees felt that they belonged and could do training. So the group I think that we have had the greatest impact on is really our classified staff, who kind of felt like that they were kind of left behind in terms of learning. And it's been a cultural shift to ensure that they now feel that they do belong and they are encouraged, and we want them to take part in it. So that in terms of guided pathways, I think that really helped us, because when we started off with those sessions about the why and the importance, it wasn't just our faculty involved in that, it was our whole college. And we were really looking at, what can we do? How can we change our processes? How can we change our perspectives and, our biases really, in order to ensure that, we understand guided pathways is so important for our student success. So we use the Vision Resource Center. We use it for tracking all of our training, offering all of our training. So, we promote the content that's provided by the Vision Resource Center or the Chancellor's Office, but we also create a lot of our own content, and that's how we offer all of our workshops. That's how we collect evaluations on all of our workshops so we can get continual feedback. But I'll talk about that. I think the next question is going to be about that assessment and evaluation piece. So I'll wait to address that one.
Thank you for offering that insight. I really appreciate to hear how you've been using it. And I wondered, Fullerton, if either Jean or Miguel, if you wanted to add maybe ways that you might have used the Vision Resource Center or other external tools or communities to help.
I'll quickly say that we have utilized 3CSN. Like, just one simple example is on our work group 4, we're working on developing an e-portfolio pilot. So we participated in the e-portfolio design lab with 3CSN to get information. And we also attended the statewide SLO conference last winter and heard a lot about like what West LA is doing with e-portfolios. And then we also attended the AAC&U Summer Institute on High Impact Practices. So, we're really trying to get as much information as we can. But Miguel's going to speak just really quickly to how the equity walk that we developed on our campus sort of went through a process of changing through external resources and kind of coming back in a circle.
Yeah, so I was participating in 3CSN when a colleague told us about they did an equity walk where a student approached them and tried to convince them to do one where everyone was in a wheelchair to experience how difficult Gavilan College was. And having heard about that, West Los Angeles College and our college both agreed to do it. So we looked at what West Los Angeles College, and then we developed a series of equity walks where cross-functional teams were given a student profile and attempted to both physically and digitally experience and solve challenges that student might experience to raise awareness, to help us identify barriers. And that we were fortunate enough that Cypress College participated that day, which is our sister college, and then Cypress reproduced it. And because of Libby's help and collaboration, Compton College attended when Cypress College did it. And then recently, Cypress College had to transition theirs to digital. So they created an entirely digital activity for their faculty, staff, and students to experience the digital relationship students have. And then we were able to present that at a recent equity conference. And now we're bringing the process back, improved as it has been, to return to Fullerton College. So we were actually the beneficiaries of a sequence of cross-campus collaborations to identify major ways to help raise awareness. And again, we were also able to identify specific concrete changes that have happened. My favorite example from our equity walk was that we noted people identified that the way that the financial aid office was set up, it was a counter immediately where people could hear what you were sharing, your personal information. So after the equity walk, they identified an empty classroom and created a separate space. So we now have a safe space for students to discuss with individuals their financial aid situation. So there's an example of changing our campus practices from our equity walk.
That incredible. I just wanted to add, Miguel, that it was Compton College who did the digital, and they also, as a result, got funding to redesign their entire college website. So it was really powerful and motivating. So thank you so much, Miguel, for that support. And I know that Natalie has a great question for you all next.
Yes, so we are coming close to our time, but I definitely want to throw in this last question for all of you. What are some of the ways that you are evaluating your professional development for effectiveness and improvement?
So I want to say that was a great question. It's a tough question, and it's something that I battle all the time, because as much as I can look at the Kirkpatrick's model and go, yeah, that's totally what we should do, the actual doing of that is really challenging. And so, for me, I've really been trying to think about, how do we look at that long-term change? In terms of using the Vision Resource Center for our tracking and offering of PD, we have required evaluations on everything that we offer. That in and of itself was a big change and benefit from our past practice. So at least now, yes, it's level 1 evaluation, but I'm able to get feedback, and I'm able to ask people within that, did this meet your needs? Was it helpful? What could we do to improve it? And what could we do in the future differently? So that is helpful. But I've been really trying to think about, in terms of all these surveys that we give across the campus. If your college participates in like the CESI, Community College Survey of Student Engagement, I've really been trying to figure out if there's a way to kind of utilize something like that, where we're looking at how a student's experience has shifted over time. But then taking that back and relating it to what we've been offering, how do we make that connection? So I don't have a great answer. We're really looking at, do we feel a sense of cultural shift? Are we hearing more positivity out of our students? That's where I'm kind of trying to lean in and see. But we have not fully implemented a 4-level system of evaluations.
I would say, yeah. Same for Fullerton. I saw that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to shamefully say we are not at level 4. But what I will say is that we have kind of along the lines of what Libby and Natalie were talking about in terms of looking at the value of sustained learning, right? So what we have, I think, implemented, I would say that we're at level 3 with our sustained professional learning programs. Like, so we have an online teaching certificate. We have a year-long new faculty seminar for first year tenured faculty. We have a teaching and learning certificate that faculty or classified staff can earn over time. And we ask them at that point, when they've completed more of a program rather than a workshop, to talk about how they have implemented and how it has impacted their practice, right? Because if they've been engaged in that learning over a year or over a whole program, and they've had the chance to put it into practice in their classrooms or their professional practice, then we actually can ask them about that. And so I would say that for our programs, for our more extended sustained learning opportunities, we are at level 3, but that elusive, how has it impacted the outcomes that we want to see for students? Like, that's been the tricky part. I'm interested we're going to be conducting the CESI actually next semester, and there's a faculty survey. And so I'm interested in kind of looking at how faculty results and comments about, kind of the professional learning they get and the results that students report. Like, I don't know. I'm hoping our IR office can kind of help us parse that a little bit. But yeah, the level 4 has been elusive for us as well.
I just wanted to, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Libby. Go ahead.
I wanted to add, I put it in the chat, but Yarick, Professor Yarick, he's been hosting some amazing conversations on Fridays with the SLO, Student Learning Outcomes Committee. But a lot of what they're talking about is this, like, how do we measure impact? How do we measure implementation? And it has to do with student learning, but a lot of it could apply to our own learning as well. So I wanted to just encourage us to really have, join those conversations if possible, because I think we could work on it together, right? It's something that we still need to work on, and we can collectively through, this community of practice that they're hosting over there. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for saying that, Libby. I really do appreciate this. We are going to have a talk on faculty learning community tomorrow, so you're certainly welcome to join us for that. And we do keep the recording archived, so it's all good. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Natalie and I, we know that it's coming on time. We're already at 32. We just so appreciate you for joining us. Natalie, any parting words here?
Yes, and I just also wanted to say, certainly, if your evaluation efforts are not certainly falling in line with this model, it's okay. It was really just about, putting this model out there and really asking us to really think about how we're conducting our PD and all of the various things that we should be thinking about. So it doesn't have to be that. It could be different things as well. But I just wanted to kind of throw it out there as an example. So anyway, we are at time. I want to thank
one question just for really quick for Miguel. Yeah. We're planning the digital equity walk for our spring plenary. So I think I got the information from the Pathways to Equity conference, but if there's any updates or anyone else has done any cool stuff with it, if you can send it my way, we're just starting the planning for it.
That's awesome, Kelly. I also want to let you know, Inland Empire, Compton presented to them as well, and they've made some just evolution since then. But also one thing that we were alerted to, someone said, digital equity walk is not as inclusive, so maybe digital equity trek, right? Yeah. Or journey, something like that. So I wanted to share that. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We so appreciate you. Looking forward to more of these, hopefully next semester. So we just want to appreciate
for hosting and inviting us.
Yes.
Thank you, Fullerton and Palomar. We appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you.
To our presenters. And
bye.
Thank you to everyone for joining us for this capacity building series. And thank you to those of you who attended every single webinar in this series. We thank you for hanging with us. And certainly thank you to Libby for being a fabulous partner and putting this series on. And we really hope that you enjoyed and were able to take some key tidbits from this to help in advancing your work with Guided Pathways. And if you have any other ideas that you would like to share with us for future Rapid webinars, please let us know. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have an enjoyable and safe holiday. Bye-bye.
Y'all too. Bye.
Bye.